Eclipses are this wild natural phenomenon that we have. There was a big one years back that kind of came through North Carolina. This was 2017. I don't know if you remember this. Were you here for that eclipse? Everybody knows what I'm talking about. You had to buy those silly glasses, which I did not have a pair for myself because I figured I was at work. It came through at like 2 p.m. or something. So like the kids had their time and they were getting out there. But I was like, well, what did I see? People drove like a few hours because we didn't have the total eclipse here. We had like I forget if it's done percentages or what, like we had like an 80%, 85%, something like that. But when the eclipse happens, even where we were, it's a surreal experience. I mean, like the temperature drops. The birds go quiet. Do y'all remember this? Like nature was like, hey, something's happening. It's not the same thing. Shadows bend strangely. I actually have the picture here of the eclipse shadows that I did capture during 2017. I don't know if it'll show up well on the TV. But you can see how they're turning up like little half moons, because like you see the normal shadows, and everything starts taking on this shape as the moon is blocking out the sun's light. And like 2 or 3 minutes, the world looks like it's ending. But what's actually happening are things are coming into alignment. The same sun is still there. It's fully blazing, but it's hidden behind something smaller and closer and darker. Paul is about to tell us something here in Romans 8, something kind of akin to this, that the glory is still shining, but something dark and close blocks our view, and that's suffering. Suffering that doesn't extinguish glory, but that only hides it for a moment of alignment. So we're going through Romans 8. I hope you've been reading Romans 8 alongside us. It's a fantastic chapter. It says so much about who we are, why we're doing these things. It tells us so much about the gospel story in a way that I hope makes things very practical and accessible and real. But I find that going slow is very necessary for me. Maybe you're much more akin to this and you can just read it and get it all in one go. I need to go slow and I need to go deep. And I have found that Romans 8 is one of those chapters that it's the pivot point. It says so much more than I get at first glance. So where we've been in this arc, verses 1 through 4, no condemnation. It was talking about location and jurisdiction. It's where we live. It's where we find ourselves. It was about finding ourselves there in Christ. 5 through 11, life in the Spirit. That's our direction and our desire. It's how we move. So we start with where we are, how we move. 8, 12 through 17. We are adopted heirs, identity and inheritance. That's who we are. So we have the where, the how, the who. And then now with 18 through 25, suffering and glory, it's the why. Why we wait, that we have hope in the groaning. So without further ado, Romans 8. Let's jump into it, starting verse 18. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. For the creation was subjected to frustration, not by its own choice, but by the will of the one who subjected it, in hope that the creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God. We know that the whole creation has been groaning as in the pains of childbirth right up to the present time. Not only so, but we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we eagerly wait for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. For in this hope we were saved. But hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. So, fantastic verses. Love this whole section. There's so many things going on that we're hopefully going to be able to look at in depth. But this first, starting off with this, I consider. The word I consider is something that I feel, again, we might read right past, but the Greek is slightly interesting. It's logizomai. Logi is, again, logic. It's an actual consideration. And I got the stupid meme face here of the woman considering things. Just to point into picture, this is not Paul being flippant. This isn't him saying, hey, I just kind of glanced at this stuff. Like, what he's saying here is I actually calculated this stuff. Because one thing that I've told you a lot that I value greatly about our faith is that God doesn't discount our sin. He doesn't discount the wrongdoings. He doesn't discount our sufferings. He deals with them. And I find that there's a lot of philosophies, there's a lot of theologies that kind of make light of the wrongness that we have. And it's like, well, if you can meditate, if you can find peace, it's like you circumvent your problems. It's like take a sidestep, just avoid the hard things, and that will be, you can find peace on the other side. And I share this frequently, but there was that time in my life where I said, the one thing I know is that I'm not going to be a Christian because that's what the culture is, and that's, if you live in the South, and that's what my parents were. So what are the chances that I just happened to be born and right into the place where everything was true and right? So I was like, I'm going to look at everything. And as I was exploring the whole, scenario of all the religious voices, of all the philosophies that are out there, I saw all of these things out there. I saw people saying, hey, you can find peace. And it made logical sense. But none of it confronted the wrongs that I knew that I had done and brought actual forgiveness to me. I am so grateful to have a Messiah who can look you in the eye and says, yeah, I know what you did, and I forgive you. Like, yes, I know what you've been through, and I want to join with you as you walk through it. It never makes light of the hard things of life. And that's such a good gift. It's an important gift to be able to actually account for the wrongs that have been done to us and by us. And that's what we have here, is that Paul is saying that this consideration, it does the work. Like, it's not just throwing this out and saying, it doesn't matter what came before. You'll be fine going ahead. Like, it doesn't matter if you failed all those tests. It doesn't, like, we're just going to focus on the next thing. What the gospel does is it accounts for everything that came before, and it does it through the beauty and the majesty and the glory of who God is. So yes, I think that distinction really matters. He's not assuming something. And if you look at this too quickly, you think that he's going to be talking about pain versus reward. There's a certain amount of pain that makes the reward worth it. And that is not at all what he's saying here. Because what Paul's actually talking about is temporary decay versus eternal substance. It's categorically different. It's not the math of weighing these things out. He's saying it's not worth consideration. What he's saying is the scales don't even apply here. We're going from one thing to the other. It's apples and oranges. We had friends from the UK who said it's chalk and cheese. That is a terrible phrase, and I don't think we should ever use that one. But apples and oranges are what we say, but they're pretty similar, so it's always confusing. But he did the work. He ran the numbers. I want to call out suffering right away, because I think anytime that suffering is brought up, it's like something that we can't help but notice. Right? Whenever we read in James that you should take great joy in your trials or your sufferings, like people are like, here's that Bible again, just making things all kinds of hard for me. Like, what does it mean by that? Like, how could you actually rejoice in your sufferings or your trials? Like it's so illogical. Our pain becomes such a focal point that it's hard for us to see anything else. And if you've been through something, you probably know what I'm talking about. Because it doesn't matter what else is happening around you. You could be the only one in the room. Everybody else is singing a song, but you're sitting with some ache. You're sitting with some sorrow. You're sitting with some loss that just makes you feel isolated. It's the loudest thing in the room. And that's what we're kind of seeing here. I want to address that suffering directly because it's something that pulls at our attention. I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. Suffering in this context, it's so vital that we understand what he's talking about is the suffering in the form of labor, not as punishment. And I think that distinction often falls to the wayside. We have one way we think about suffering. It's not fun and I don't want to do it. But what we're talking about here are sufferings as a form of labor, not as punishment. A suffering that leads us to glory. I have seen people try to shoulder the hard things of life as if those things will make them holy. And it doesn't work. People who actually look for this persecution, feeling that if I'm persecuted, that must mean that I'm doing something right. And frankly, sometimes that's embarrassing. We have people who are then just being jerks, just thinking that all of the animosity that I'm now getting is somehow going to make me more righteous and more holy. Ralph Waldo Emerson has this quote, "Let me never fall into the vulgar mistake of dreaming that I'm persecuted whenever I'm being contradicted." And I think that it's worth laughing. It's something that hits us because I think we understand this. If I'm wrong, let me be wrong. That doesn't mean that I'm being persecuted. I've seen people that try to expand their own sufferings as if they believe that's their pursuit of God. And I think that, quite frankly, we have sometimes made an idol out of suffering because we've misunderstood this. That a God-given suffering is something that lines us up with the glory of God. But I will tell you, the enemy, I will tell you that mankind, I will tell you that this fallen world would love to just heap suffering out as it does. That doesn't mean that it's divine. I see people that say God has a plan for all of these things, so therefore, no matter what hardship you go through, God was the one who did that. And now we have God who's now guilty of these atrocious actions in this world. And we have mistaken what it means to have a God who says, line things up with my glory and the kingdom come. And then we see people joining with suffering, thinking that somehow this will make sense on the other side of all things. This passage that we read in Romans puts that to bed in a way that is profound. And I think that this might be disruptive to us. And I want you to pause and be okay with this. Now, what I'm not saying is that God's going to just be out of control for certain things. Because what I've seen that is even when of the brokenness of this world, even when the enemy does the best they can to steal, kill, and destroy, God is always sovereign. All right? Don't confuse those two things that I'm saying, all right? Just because something didn't originate from God does not mean that God does not have the power and the authority and the ability and the love to go ahead and use that for the good of all things as he's on the other side of it. But that doesn't mean that he wants to do this to you. He doesn't want to give somebody cancer so that, oh, now you can finally pay attention to me. He's not saying, oh, I need you to suffer just because I just need you to hear me. That is an unkind father. And I think that we have painted this picture of God in such a way that he's not recognizable. And there's something about me that we know when we say that doesn't feel good, that doesn't feel right, and we are in confusion about that. And Paul is saying, no, our sufferings must line up with the glory of God, and then it's labor. It's birthing something. It's bringing something good about it because it's lined up with where the Lord is taking us. I've seen people confounded when their suffering does not seem to have that silver lining on it. And unfortunately, probably the people that need to hear this are not the ones in these seats. Because I think, church, we mistake the fact that so many people have left our faith. So many people have left a pursuit of God because they've been confused and confounded by these things that people offer as platitudes that just don't ring true with what they know about life. And so they're no longer here. They're like, I got nothing for it. Like, how can you tell me that this is what a good God wants to do? I've heard bad theology claim that some of the worst things of life must be in God's plan. But Paul is talking about suffering when it's aligned with God's glory. And when that's the case, the limited, small, broken nature of this world must give way. And I want you to hear that so clearly. That when our sufferings line up with the glory of God, the broken nature of this world must give way. It can't hold back. It cannot block out the sun. It cannot keep all those things out. It must give birth to something that is better and greater. Suffering then is labor. And yes, I mean that as childbirth, but I also mean this as the good work that we do. It's the pain of childbirth. It's the pain of an effective workout. It's the self-sacrifice to lift another person up. It's putting our kids on our shoulders so that they can go further than we ever could. That is suffering aligned with glory. That's saying that maybe I can share my meal now so that all of us together won't be so hungry. It's saying that all of us together are greater than any one of us individually. That is suffering aligned with glory. It's not the loss of a child. It's not the dissolution of a relationship. It's not financial ruin. It's not reputation damage. It's not surviving abuse. God can and does use those things for good, but that's not what this passage is talking about. We're talking about labor pains. God-given, and I'll say necessary, aligned suffering. And I said necessary. Have you seen the corona that you get during an eclipse? It's profoundly beautiful. It's profoundly unique. Like, we live on this planet in the middle of the vastness of space, where our moon is aligned with the shape of and size of our sun. The astronomical, and I'm using that in the correct and literal sense of the word, the astronomical nature of what that means and what that creates for our lived experience on this planet is profound. Like, the fact that we get to witness this whenever this eclipse happens is just, it tells me a story of something going on. And people have said this as long as people have been talking about these things. There's something here showing us something else. You can't get that without the moon blocking the sun. There's no childbirth without the pains of labor. Just before this service, I was talking with someone about the hard and good work of preaching at a funeral. And I will tell you that the truth of the gospel goes deeper and does a stronger work when that's the context. It's just the case of it. It's an opportunity to see something that actually matters. We're not talking about fluff. We're not talking about the light things of this world, but we're talking about things that make difference. Diamonds, they have to be crushed. That's the only way that we produce those diamonds. There is no resurrection without the grave. There's no spirit among us without Christ ascending and leaving us behind. There has to be this necessary suffering to line us up with the glory of God. When these things are lined up and going the right direction, this is God's good plan. So, beyond suffering, what else do we have in this passage? We have glory, we have liberation, we have hope. There's a whole lot here. Glory is a term that, again, like I had that picture of the glory of the corona, right? You can see these things, and we talk about the glory of the battlefield. Okay, we sing about glory, 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 hallelujah. And it's like, that's a Georgia song, by the way. I didn't know if I was going to lose you all on that. You know, Lee and I were talking, it's remarkable that we have more Florida fans here than UGA fans, with how much Lee and I care about Georgia football. I don't understand how we've gone astray. We have to convert some folks here. All right, so in verse 18, I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed in us. For the creation waits in eager expectation for the children of God to be revealed. Glory, I want to give you this definition, is visible goodness. And I think that that's a good word for us. I grew up with this word being very muddy because it's something that's so steeped in religious meaning to me that it's almost meaningless. You know, we talk about the Shekinah glory, the manifest glory of God. And I'm like, I don't know what that really means. If you haven't had this experience, if you haven't been in that place when we're talking about this manifest glory, are we just talking about the presence of God? And then we're thinking, does that mean that it has to be a physical manifestation for it to be the glory of God? Am I missing out? Is there some gap between this and that experience that I have during all this time of praise and worship? Unless all of a sudden there is gold dust, unless all of a sudden the heavens do split, right? So how do we recognize glory maybe here and now if those things aren't yet manifesting, which, by the way, I believe that they can and do, and it's wonderful. I was going to say glorious, but that's a little redundant. Visible glory, visible goodness sharpens it up, because if you think about the glory of a victory, right? That's the visible triumph, the courage, the wounds, the medals, the honor that show the reality of what happened. The glory of the battlefield is made apparent, right? The mountains in all their glory, that goodness of creation is made visible. It's the visible goodness that God created this world. She returned in glory. Her triumph was apparent, right? She's back here. She's among us. Like, we can understand that all of these things are showing a visible goodness. So to me, at least, and hopefully this helps for you as well, when I think about visible goodness for glory, it starts to mean something to me. I can see where we're going here. So Romans 8:18 through 25, it's not about becoming shiny. It's not about trying to like actually have the projection like you see on all the Renaissance paintings where people have literal halos over their head and you can always tell who's Jesus, right? Because he's the only baby that's glowing. And I don't believe that baby Jesus was glowing, just so you know. I don't even think that Jesus on the cross was glowing. In fact, I'm pretty sure he wasn't. After the grave, maybe. We'll talk about that later. That's an Easter time thing. So we're not talking about becoming shiny. We're talking about the goodness of God planted in creation becoming visible. All right, the goodness of God planted in creation becoming visible. The goodness of God that's been forming in you becoming unmistakable. We're talking about the goodness of resurrection breaking through decay. We're talking about the goodness of God's world replacing the ugliness of bondage. That's glory. So when Paul says the glory that will be revealed in us, he's saying the goodness that God has put in you, the real stuff, the heavy stuff, will one day be visible in full daylight. It's not metaphorical, it's not mystical, it's not vague. It's actual, undeniable goodness that creation itself recognizes. That is a profound hope. That's a profound purpose. That creation itself, and by the way, we are a part of creation, that creation itself will recognize. The Hebrew word for glory, kavod, a weight, a substance, a heaviness, okay? Literally, it's something so good, something so real, so solid that it bends the room. When God's glory fills the temple, the point is that his goodness is so real that it has weight. There's this definition of gravity that I've seen on YouTube in a bunch of these different videos. It really helped me. Like, I don't understand, and I'm not trying to get overly sciencey. I know I lost some of y'all with the eclipse stuff, but I'm going to give you a little bit more. So, understanding like how gravity works is such a big, convoluted, confusing thing. But what they've got in some of these, you can watch the physics things on YouTube. I'm sure we all do this, right? In your downtime with me, like you're pulling up physics videos. So what they've done to show this is they have a trampoline, right? And what they do to show like how things move through space, you just roll a marble across the trampoline and it just goes in a straight line and everything makes perfect sense as you would expect, right? But then what they do is they put a bowling ball onto that, and it does what you would think a bowling ball would do. It's going to cause a depression there, right? And then they roll a marble across it, and guess what happens? It bends. The arc of the marble across the trampoline is now going around the bowling ball. And if you go fast enough, you can get through it. You can break through the gravity. But if you go slower, it gets stuck. And it starts spiraling around and around and around until it connects with that bowling ball. It's a metaphor. That's not how it really works. Space is three-dimensional, all that sort of stuff. But it's a picture for us. And if you read the XKCD comic, it's making fun of this as well. But it's a really good metaphor to help me understand something that has weight, that bends things towards it. All right? So if we're thinking about God's glory as that bowling ball on a trampoline, God's goodness in a room has weight that it pulls us towards it. All of a sudden, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that works. That's what it is. When God is here, when God shows up, all of a sudden there's this part of my soul that's just attracted. It's just like that's where he's moving. That's where I find life. That's where these things start to line up. And my sufferings make sense because I can tell that there's something good coming out of this. I can see through this. I can see past this. I know the glory of God is lining these things up. There are people, I don't know if you've known them, who have a certain gravitas in a certain room, right? And there's words, when spoken in the right context, hit differently. They have more meaning. The gospel preached at a funeral kind of goes home in a way that the same words spoken at another time just wouldn't. Not all words are created equal. Not all moments are created equal. And I believe in the sanctity of all human creation, but there are certain people in certain moments at certain times who carry more weight. And this is delicate. I want you to hear me. I'm not talking about worth. I'm talking about weight. Glory is not your value. It's God's work in you becoming visible. And there's times when we're doing the work of God where that weight, that attraction, just is more visible. And there's a difference in those who carry that weight. There's a difference in those people who give themselves to that weight. If you say, I am going to take God's glory as a part of my daily work, and you carry God's glory with you through his Holy Spirit, you carry that weight with you wherever you go. John Wimber, he was an integral part of the early vineyard. He shares this story about he was traveling somewhere and he was standing in line, and there's this woman who was just staring at him and just wouldn't look away. And it's one of these things where it almost feels apocryphal, like you wonder how this went, but this is the story that he told, and he was able to recognize what was going on. He goes, you like it, don't you? And she's like, what is it? And he said, it's the glory of God. Being visible. Something about whenever somebody is carrying this weight, and not in a way that's actually heavy. All right, you got to drop that metaphor in some ways, right? Because his yoke is easy. But when you carry that responsibility, that goodness with you, it shapes the world around us. It shapes the people around us. Creation is longing to see the children of God have that glory revealed in them. That's the call that we have. Will you carry that weight with you? Will you go around saying, I give myself to make this available to the world? Because the world needs it. The world actually needs God's goodness. The world actually needs the weight of God's glory to be revealed for who they are. The Greek word is a doxa. Reputation, splendor, visibility. And so the idea is that weight becomes seen, it becomes perceived, it's recognized. So when Paul is saying that glory is revealed in us, the real goodness that God has put in you finally becomes visible. So this goodness that has weight and is something you can see. It kind of makes no sense, which brings you back to what are we talking about? And I'm back to visible goodness. It's the visible goodness that we have here. Glory, in that sense, is not at all applause, but revelation, okay? When things kind of click in and you kind of make sense now. It's not that we're just celebrating things. It's like saying, I get it now. Glory is when the unseen substance of God's work becomes visible reality. It doesn't descend from the sky, but it breaks out from within redeemed creation. And that is going to bring us to liberation. Verse 21. The creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay. This is the attraction. This is the work that we want to see happen. This is creation saying, I am being broken apart by this. This is creation saying, time and entropy and everything is ruining my life. That the longer I sit here, the more that I become weak, the more that things stop making sense, the more that things are pulling apart me, the more things cost. Everything's getting more expensive all the time, and my life just goes to wreck. No matter how much time I sit in this spot, things are getting worse. And creation itself, your neighbors, all the things around us will be liberated from its bondage to decay. This is what creation longs for. This is what the glory of God is meant to do, is to liberate creation from its bondage to decay. The word just means will be set free. It's the same word used from deliverance from sin and death. Creation itself is not trash waiting for incineration. Again, when we talk about the harm that I think that the church has done, we have made people disposable. We've made relationships disposable. We've made the planet disposable. And this is not me telling you to recycle, and you probably should. But this is saying that we have made things so flippant and so just trash that we don't see the worth in what the Lord is doing. When those things are meant to be redeemed. When they're meant to be restored, when the good and beautiful work that the Lord has done in creation can actually come back to what it's meant to be, where decay is pulled back, and we can see here are all things as they are meant to be. Church, a skeptical world has called us out for being dismissive and uncaring, and I can see where that criticism is going to land home. Are we really going to treat people in that way? Are we really going to treat image bearers in that way? Are we going to treat the beauties, the glories of creation in this way as if they don't matter? As if everything's better with a layer of concrete on it, The word for decay also means futility. Liberation isn't coming from an external source, it's participatory. That's a bold statement. Liberation in this passage is not coming from an external source. It's participatory. It is literally waiting for the people of the cross to bear birth to the glory of God. That's the call. It's saying will you wake up and give me what you've got, church? Creation itself is saying, I need what you have. Would you please give me the glory of God? I'm groaning for it. I'm suffering without it. But if you will line this up for me, if you will let me see God's glory, then finally this decay will not pull me back. The cosmos is waiting for the revelation of the sons and daughters of God because our redemption is the catalyst for its renewal. When God's children stand fully revealed, creation recognizes its rightful caretakers, not people who are exploiting it, but image-bearing stewards who are restored. Our good friend N.T. Wright, I wish he were a good friend. That would make me happy. He talks about the human vocation finally healed. The job we're actually meant to be doing, the human vocation finally healed. We messed it up in the garden. We can't blame Adam and Eve because we've done it ourselves. Like this act of what we were made to do, how we're meant to care for each other, how we're meant to love each other, what we're meant to do in this world. Like, we have work to do. And he says here, this is finally where humans get to be humans. I talk about this as our ministry time. That's where the church is acting like the church. That's where we're saying the glory of God is in this place. And if we give ourselves to that, if we lean into that, if we let that pull ourselves in, then finally the glory of God, that visible goodness, is something that will shape the lives of everybody who comes into orbit of it, everybody who comes close to it. And hope. Hope is defiant. Hope is not like a kid looking for a shooting star out of their window, just on a wish and a prayer. The difference between hoping and wishing is profound. The word is surprising here, that we see that we're hoping in this. In this hope, we were saved. That's a profound difference. It's not just this idea that we're going to be close to this. We're in this. Hope is not the condition, but the atmosphere. It's expectation with trust. It's patience with purpose. Hope is seeing clearly what is unseen. It's a protest and a defiance to the broken nature of this world that we find. It's not ignorance. It's not turning a blind eye. It's not ignoring the facts. Wishing can be that. Wishing can be like, man, it'd be great if things weren't so bad. Man, I wish I had $1 million. Imagine what I could do if I had unlimited wealth. And we like that, right? We wish about that. We dream about that. That is not a hope. A hope brings about action, and it's anchored in the truth of who God is and what he's doing. You can't hope for something of God if it's something of a broken nature. That's not lining things up. That is not putting your suffering in line with the glory of God. Bonhoeffer has this idea of the stubborn holding on to the future God has already begun. As he wrote this from prison, the essence of optimism is that it takes no account of the present, but it's a source of inspiration, vitality, and hope where others have resigned. Bonhoeffer, in prison for attempting to assassinate Hitler, writes those words. As he is looking at his death sentence, the essence of optimism is that it takes no account of the present, but is a source of inspiration, vitality, and hope where others have resigned. Hope, I put this up here, is like planting seeds in scorched earth because you trust that the rain is coming. This world is broken. But do we actually believe that we are participants in the redemption of all things? Do we actually believe that the goodness of God is beyond the moon blocking out its glory sometimes? This now the not yet that we have. Now we don't see fully. Now things might be dark. Now we might be struggling. But do you believe? Do you know? Do you trust? Do you have hope that God is on the other side? Can you plant seeds now because you have such divine confidence in the goodness of God coming to make those seeds grow? That's what hope really is. It's a defiant act. We were talking about this in pre-service prayer, and Chris shared this. We are to be the water in the barren land, not the sower. We are to bring living water to the places where seeds have been sown, where people may be struggling and suffering. That's exactly what I'm trying to talk about. What do we as the church do in this broken world that we find ourselves? Do we just ignore it? Do we just try to find our way through it? Do we just close our eyes to the hard things and say, well, I'm just going to make sure that I'm okay with mine. I'm just going to take care of myself and number one. And, I guess good luck out there, y'all. It's hard. Or are we called to be the visible goodness in this broken world? Adoption. I want to talk about this real quickly. You might read this, and you might read this as a contradiction to what I said last week. Last week, when we talked about all the activity of the Spirit, one of the things I said, if you look, the identity stuff, being the adopted heir, that was past tense. Why? Because that's done. It's done once and for all, right? That was what I said. I meant it. And we can see here clearly that we are waiting for our adoption. So this is verse 14. For those who are led by the Spirit of God are the children of God. The Spirit you received does not make you slaves so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship. Done deal. Verse 23, we ourselves, who have the first fruits of the Spirit, groan inwardly as we wait eagerly for our adoption to sonship, the redemption of our bodies. Well, hold up now. Paul, what are you doing here? Wasn't this a done deal? It was all signed and I have the name and everything's great. And now you're saying that I'm groaning as I'm waiting for this? This is where I think truly the beauty of the written word matters to us. This is not an inconsistent. Paul didn't change his mind like a few verses later. Like that does such disservice to the text itself. But it's an invitation for us to really look deeper. It's this poetic language that Paul uses the economy of words so well to let us know that there's something else going on here. It's one thing if you're writing a book and you can print things out, with all the pages and all the ink that you've got, to just talk about who our identity is. And you can spend 20 pages talking about your identity in Christ. You can talk about the now and the not yet, and you can do that with another 100 pages, and you can talk about all that means. But what he's doing here, he's saying a lot without being explicit. How can our adoption be done and something that we still hope for? This is the vineyard's bread and butter. The now and the not yet. That we have in part here now, but not fully. And we still see that again. Paul saying, yeah, you've got this. This is who you are. But you realize this world's still broken. You realize we're still working this out. We are still works in progress. That your bodies still are being redeemed. There's still this pool of decay that we find in this day and age. We still have those friends of ours who, as he says, fall asleep. Those who pass on. Those who we will see again on the other side of eternity. But he goes deeper here. Because he's telling us now not about our identity, but about the redemption of our bodies. These bodies being redeemed. Like he's talking about, yes, we can talk about your soul, we can talk about that inner part of who you are, but I'm talking about here and now, who you are, being shown to this world, this visible goodness, the redemption of our bodies. Our adoption is for our physical current life. And I believe that includes our health. I want to say this two ways. I do believe in divine healing. Extraordinary, supernaturally, miraculous healing. We have testimonies in this room. We have testimonies of people that have been prayed for from the people in this room. Just got one earlier today about brain tumors, and then this is the goodness of God. I believe that is the world that we find ourselves in, where God cares about our physical bodies and our health. The Gospels are full of it. And I also believe that my life in every way is better when I'm aligned with God's ways. And I mean that physically, psychically, emotionally, mentally, in every way. That's what the adoption work is. That's the redemption of these things. And I think that sometimes we get so stuck on one thing, because that suffering, when it calls your attention, when your body is broken, you know that. You feel that when you move around. You get that. When your mind is suffering with anxiety, depression, you feel that. That is the place where your imagination, where your thoughts go all the time. Whatever those things, if you've experienced trauma, you see things through that lens of trauma, right? If you're in financial crisis, right? Then everything that you see feels like I'm struggling and I've got that poverty. You might feel like you're drowning. All of those ways that we talk about this, I believe when we are lined up with the glory of God, all of a sudden that redemption of our bodies, that waiting for us to be adopted into sonship, it all starts to make sense. Because we are inheritors. We are redeemed. Our bodies can be healed. Our minds can be set free. We can have liberation and hope no matter what the circumstance. Everything, every part of our lives starts to work whenever we have been redeemed into the adoption of our sons. But it's something we're working out. I have not yet met one person who was fully redeemed and done and they're off to the races and everything's great. I just don't think that has happened save Jesus. All of us are works in progress. And that's what Paul has been saying through so much of Romans. And yet it's we miss that's the point. Is no, I'm still a mess, but I know where I'm going. I'm groaning, and creation is growing, and we're growing together because this is the labor of what we do here and now. As long as I have breath in my lungs, I'm working this thing out. This is the direction I am going. I never tired of reminding us of what the biblical hope is. It's not to go to heaven when we die. It's the renewal of all things. A new heaven and a new earth, not even starting one day in the far future, but actually starting here and now with things that I can affect and control. The church has been on the sidelines for so much of time because we just thought my faith is for after. You know, that what I do here is I stamp my ticket for heaven and eventually I'll be fine. You know, we don't have all the details, but don't worry about it. That's something to worry about then. And we have sidelined ourselves from creation that is groaning, from brothers and sisters who do not yet know the glory of God, who are saying, I need help. And church, this is the work, and we are meant to be participants in it here and now, the renewal of all things. Christian hope is the confident expectation that God will renew all creation, starting with us, stretching into the world, and culminating in the resurrection where heaven and earth are finally reunited. Not escape, not disembodied bliss, not hold on to heaven. It's new creation breaking in now, empowering us to live as signs and agents of the world that God is making. And this is why, back to the text, first fruits matter so much. Because now is what we have. You won't have tomorrow until tomorrow comes, and then that will be now. The book that I stole from the library in college, if you've heard me preach about this before, I'm still embarrassed by it, but this is something I did, is God in the eternal present. God in the eternal present. The present is eternal. This is what we have. By the way, I meant to return it. I did. I just never got around to it. I graduated too soon. Now is what we have. Paul is anchoring us now with what we have because we still have our direction. We still have our inheritance. There's a direct through line because these things are lined up even as much as the sun and moon are during an eclipse. This is verse 24. For in this hope we are saved. But hope that is seen is no hope at all. Who hopes for what they already have? But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently. That's just the reality of the world that we have. Until all things are made new, until there's finally no more suffering, until there's finally no more despair, until justice finally reigns, until everything is actually made right, until that comes, this is what we've got. We have an eclipse. I know the glory of God's on the other side. I can see the corona. I can see these things coming through. The fact that we have work to do is the best news that I could hope for. The fact that we have work to do is the best news I could hope for, because vision, ambition, and mission, the lack of those things kills the human soul. If we do not have vision and ambition and mission, if we are just trust fund children wasting time, what is the point? If we are adopted heirs and then we get to float in the pool all day, Melissa's down for it. But I think, what is the point? Why not just take us now? Why not just, it's not worth it. If I do that math, it's not worth it. But because there is work to do, because that work is worthy of being done, because we are the ones that are meant to be the agents of that, what else could it be? It's the goodness that we have this work to do. So these first fruits, the first portion of a harvest that guarantees the rest is coming. It's not a sample. It's not a teaser trailer. It's not a sniff of the bakery. It's the actual crop itself. That's what we have to work with. In this moment, we have the first fruits. Not the full harvest, but we have it. That's what we have with the Spirit. It's the same thing. The same resurrection power that creation will get later. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead. The same goodness, the same glory, the same liberation, just not in full bloom. The Spirit's the opening chapter of your future resurrection. The early evidence of your full adoption. The first light of the coming glory. So what we have is the first fruit of adoption, meaning we have the family name. We have the family authority. We don't just yet have all the inheritance. It doesn't make sense to have the inheritance while you're alive. We have the first fruits of glory, the preview of the goodness of God already operating in us, our bodies, our soul, our spirits, our minds. We have the first fruits of liberation. that we don't have to be enslaved to the systems of this world. And the world will try. And we may listen to those lies. The people that we have around us may partner with the brokenness of this fallen world as victims or perpetrators of that. But liberation is possible. It's almost a dismissive example, but there was this time where we were on a family vacation, and I couldn't get my morning coffee. And if you know me, I like my coffee, and I have certain ways that I like it. And, I was just in a hurry. I was just moving through my day, but I was in a bad mood. And my head hurt, and I was kind of a jerk to my wife and my kids, and I couldn't figure out why everything seemed so terrible. Like, legitimately terrible, and I'm angry, and it's like, and I realized, like, hours into it, it's like, I'm addicted to caffeine. Like, my body is dependent upon this. But hold up, not just my body, my emotions are dependent upon this. And this chemical, if I don't have it in my body, my personality shifts, my values shift. Oh no. So I regularly, I've told this before, but I regularly have to detox myself from caffeine because I refuse to let that have control over me. I don't know if it's silly and dismissive or not, because it's a real addiction that we've made socially acceptable. It's okay, it's just caffeine, and we have it everywhere. But you've given part of your life to this, right? All of these ways that we are in control, that we need to be liberated from the brokenness of this world, we can see, right? I want to only be controlled by the kingdom of God, but we have these socially acceptable things that we're enslaved to. Caffeine. You might be addicted to approval of people around you. Scrolling on your phones, get those dopamine hits. You might be addicted to work, food, and gluttony, and greed. Conflict avoidance is socially acceptable to be one of those. Productivity, self-criticism. All of these things, they don't really tick the box of like, oh, I'm struggling. But church, have we given ourselves to that? If your neighbor says a bad word about you, do you just do whatever you can to try to curry their favor back? You just can't take somebody being mad at you. You just have to be the people pleaser to make sure that the world's going to go okay. You just have to do your work. It just feels like this is the only thing that I can do. It's moral. And because all of these are things that we're still dealing with, in this time we groan. We have to do some work here. We're going to get into this as much next week as this week, because there are 3 things that groan together, and we've only read about 2 of them. But groaning to me feels like you groan out of frustration. Like, oh, I'm so, like, why couldn't it happen that way? But here, in this trinity of groaning, creation itself, we ourselves, and the Spirit's what we're going to see groaning next week. It's not despair, but it's participation. It's not despair, but participation. The sound of something growing, not of something dying. Okay? Even though there's a birthing, we are groaning together. We're laboring together. We're working together in harmony. I've seen lots of people tell me over the years that where they see God is in his timing. Have you heard that? I see God in retrospect whenever I see how things lined up. And this is not flippant. I think that this is true. Like, people, you can actually see, God did that. Like, in the moment, I kind of couldn't recognize it, but when I look back, I can see how God did exactly what I needed, exactly when I needed, or this stuff would not have happened. And I want to put that in your head, that that's these things lining up. That this is whenever the circumstance of this world, the groanings of this world, the darkness, the thing that blocks me from seeing him, that's when he's lining ourselves up from where we are to where we're being called. Who we are with what we're called to be about. That's the eclipse. So Romans 8:18 through 25, it tells us 3 things at the same time. Glory is coming. And glory means the visible goodness of God breaking out in your life into the world. Creation is waiting, not for escape, but for our freedom to unlock its freedom. And hope is how we wait, not in quiet resignation, but as defined participation in the future that God has already begun. So we groan because we have the first fruits. We taste enough of the kingdom to know what we're missing. We have enough freedom to recognize the chains. We have enough glory to long for the full weight of it. We have enough of the Spirit to ache for resurrection. Suffering does not mean that God is gone. It means that the eclipse is happening. Something dark and close is blocking your view for a moment, but the sun is still blazing. So I've got 3 things that I want us to do. And Ethan, you can come up here now. What then shall we do? How then shall we live? Or, as I always try to make these things somewhat practical, so what? Why did I actually preach this message? Is it just so that you read the Bible more? But no. Here's the encouragement that I have for us. Truly, identify one socially acceptable form of slavery that you have and break it. Like, don't live under this. Don't give part of your life to something that is not the kingdom of God. Do not subject yourself to these weaker masters. Do not be blind to the fact that you are struggling in a very real way. Not all chains look like sin. What tiny thing has more authority over your emotions than the Spirit? What habit hijacks your peace? So pick one and break it this week. Choose one way to make goodness visible. If glory is visible goodness, then say, where is the goodness that God is forming in me already? Where could that goodness be made visible this week? This could be like a confession. It could be offering forgiveness. It could be generosity. It could be restraint. It could be reconciliation. It could be a sacrifice. But make goodness visible. And practice defiant hope. Not naive optimism. Not everything happens for a reason. Not cover your eyes positivity. But I'm trusting the future that God is bringing, even if I can't see it. Maybe you need that for your kids, maybe for school, maybe for your marriage, maybe for your loneliness, maybe for your health, your job, your finances, or your sense of calling. Knowing that God has given you something that you've either buried or forgotten or just tried to move past. But have defiant hope to say, it's worth fighting for. That even in this barren land, if this is from God, it's worth figuring it out.